Hi there. This is the Look-See for July 2024. And the Look-See is a combination of news and commentary and a bit of clairvoyant assessment in order to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening out there in the world and the things that we would do well to think deeply about or find ways around. The things that came up this month ranged across some very difficult topics that affect our daily lives. So, it's hard to find ways to really be positive when there's so much stuff happening that really doesn't look good. And people write all the time and they'll say, you're not being positive. Well, I'm saying what I'm seeing. What are you guys doing? What are those guys doing? What's the impact of all of that? I'm just not making stuff up out of my hat. So I'm saying what I see, and I'm not going to lie. So the topics this month include a couple of dreams, actually, the various wars going on, UFOs, and a bunch of other things. So let's begin. Number one, I don't usually start the Look-See with the subject of precious metals, but gold kept coming up in so many ways as part of the financial backing needed for the new financial system, as a hedge, as something used in technology, as something that adds to the personal security of the individuals and even countries. So you don't need an entire treasure chest full of gold. You just need a little. For those who have no idea how to go about getting some gold, you can buy it by the bar, the ounce, the half ounce, the quarter ounce, or even a tenth of an ounce. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, but it is common sense when a system is going down and, it's looking pretty rough out there. So, and there are plenty of signs that indicate that things are coming apart. So pay attention, maybe get a little gold. Number two, I couldn't help sharing this comment written by someone reporting on HSBC Securities Chief Commodities Analyst James Steele, who, quote, remains positive that the US dollar will wither the storm initiated by BRICS. I'm fairly certain that the writer meant that the US dollar would weather the storm, but the word wither is like a Freudian slip that tells what he really thinks will happen in response to BRICS. Number three, I have been following the war in Ukraine quite closely since the very beginning, listening to reports daily, watching videos, reading articles, etc., reading Russian newspapers. Many times, Putin has offered to sit down and work out an agreement, and every single time, the answer is no. He gets turned down. Always, I would think, why? Why won't they end this slaughter? I knew, and have mentioned it in earlier Look-Sees, that the money being sent to Ukraine was simply being laundered back into politicians' pockets. So I figured that was the reason they didn't want to stop the war. They didn't want to stop the flow of money they were getting. However, I learned a few other things about the war in Ukraine that really set me back on my heels in surprise. The land in Ukraine, the farmland, is some of the richest agricultural land in the world. And guess what? That land has already been sold to transnational corporations. OMG. Those corporations were likely told that there was no way Ukraine could lose with the backing of NATO and the entire West, and they fell for it. And maybe they're now insisting that the U.S. continue the war because they want access and control over the land they think they own. Is this why the powers that want to be keep pretending they can win? Because they already spent the money and they can't give it back? Wow, that's between a rock and a hard place. Number 4, let's talk about lithium. Lena Petrova brought up something that has not been talked about until just recently. This was the intent to get control of the lithium deposits in Ukraine, which are said to be huge, in the hundreds of billions of dollars. As Lena points out, the point of the war in Ukraine is not to spread democracy or the right to self-determination or even to expand NATO. The point is to get their hands on the lithium deposits there. Lithium is said to be a necessary resource for the change to renewable energy. That's BS. If lithium is such a rare and non-renewable substance, how can it be part of renewable energy? Anything limited is eventually going to run out. And what then? How will the renewable energy be renewed once needed substances are gone? The change to renewable energy, which really would better be called controllable energy, is not going to happen if it's based on finite substances on planet Earth. It must be based on a whole new level of science. We could have solved the entire problem of how to get truly renewable energy if, instead of sending billions of dollars into that black hole of Ukraine, we had put those billions into scientific research to solve the energy challenges in front of us. Others across the solar system and the galaxy have solved that problem, and we can too. But not if we're dinking around with CEOs and politicians that are not only greedy, they are stupid. They are small-minded, short-sighted, and lazy. And they have no vision except a life of ease and temporary power for themselves. They have only one goal, and that is to make money. People do not matter to them. Number 5. Staying on the subject of lithium, it looks like the quest for lithium is behind the attempted coup in Bolivia this past week, as they have huge deposits of it as well. Australia is another source of lithium, but they capitulated to the deep state long ago. Argentina is yet another lithium source. Witness the confusion and struggle for power going on there. For a long time, it was reported that the biggest deposits of lithium were in China. But some time ago, lithium was discovered in the U.S. along the Nevada-Oregon border in the Malheur National Forest. This is the same area as the Hammond Ranch and the standoff at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. If you recall, the Hammond family, aided by the Bundy family and militiamen from around the U.S., had a serious face-to-face standoff in January 2016. The government was forced to back down. Of course, the Hammonds and the Bundys were painted by media to look like domestic terrorists. But the truth was that the federal government, via the Bureau of Land Management, the original BLM, and the Fish and Wildlife Service had been harassing the Hammonds for 20 years in an effort to get them to give up their 6,000-acre ranch. Why? Because people in the government wanted full control over the mineral resources on that land. The same reason for the war in Ukraine. I'm wondering how long it's going to take for humanity to wake up and see the truth behind every move the government is making. Wherever there's a problem, the government, deep state can be found causing the trouble. We can't fix something if we don't recognize the root of the problem. I think the biggest problems we have right now are that we, the people, live in a different world than those who think they are running our lives. And we, the people, are being put under great distress coming from many directions. I'm so sorry to say it that way, but it is what I see. The best thing we can do is learn from what we are going through. You know, it's not every day that we have a chance to be schooled by a rogue government. And we will be a very wise people with a lot of useful experience by the time this is over. Peace, honesty, and wisdom are coming, and there is hidden help watching. So don't for a minute think we are alone in this fight. Number 6. We are still moving toward a pretty serious-looking war on the horizon. When I follow that information into the future, it's easy to see that the deep state is working mightily to get a war going, and it looks like they succeed, but it's not the war they are expecting. Their idea was to invite lots of illegals into the U.S. with the intention of stirring up violence in lots of places to distract Americans away from what the deep state is doing. And there is some violence that is quite distracting for those who are directly affected. But what the deep state did not take into account fully was the preparation for organized resistance in the form of a population that is finally working together. They didn't really expect the military to refuse to follow orders, which is something I keep seeing. They didn't expect as many groups that I'll call the extra military in the form of mercenary groups, and they certainly did not expect that some of the illegals would wake up to the fact that they have been used. When their debit cards don't work and they can't buy food, when the country descends into the same kind of violence and poverty they thought they were leaving behind, the illegals realize they are far from home, family, and friends, with no prospect of getting back there. They begin to turn on the very people who promised them everything and are no longer able to deliver anything. The good news in all of this, we will have help from many directions. Number 7. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, may step down in complete frustration in the coming months. NATO appears to be finally showing more of the many cracks that will eventually take it down. The work of Viktor Orban is causing great consternation among the NATO countries. If anything happens to him, it will be a spark that lights a huge conflagration in the same way the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the spark that lit World War II. Number 8. Spain. Spain kept coming up on my radar as a hot spot of revolution against staying in the EU. They may be among the first of the countries to break with NATO as well. Certainly, Hungary has made it clear that they will be giving directions to NATO and not taking orders from it. Go, you guys. Go, go, go. Number 9. This is kind of difficult. Commodity prices keep going up, and I was reminded of a comment by J. Snip 4 quite some time ago that maybe he should buy a freezer full of bread. I think he had a dream about not being able to buy bread. This might be the time to act on that dream. Between the slow degeneration of our soils, the deliberate interference of the people running the climate change scams, the rains, the droughts, the shortage of fertilizers, and the number of farmers going out of business or being paid to let their fields lie fallow, commodity prices are not done going up. Number 10. In a world full, absolutely full of war language, I guess I should not be surprised by the introduction of the headline, "The Food Wars Begin," along with the warning that we should no longer rely on a steady supply of food. I have encouraged you, I think in almost every look-see, to grow at least something in your yard or on your patio deck. So let me say it again. You need to learn to take full responsibility for feeding yourself. One of the wonderful side benefits of doing so will be the discovery of the difference between commercially grown food that is grown in dead soils, picked before it's ripe, lacking in major nutrients needed by the body, and tasteless. The amazing taste and keeping qualities of homegrown food are a delightful bonus. Number 11. In the last look-see, I saw that Keir Starmer was going to become the new Prime Minister of England, and the Labour Party was once again on top. The scenario was similar to what happened in the US in the 2020 and 2022 elections. And sure enough, just like Donald Trump, Nigel Farage was a heavy favorite, but then something mysterious happened on the way to the ballot box. Suddenly, Starmer was in place and promising to keep the whole left-wing Zelensky, Ukraine, Israel show going. However, England is likely to come apart. And like I said, Starmer may find he is a prime minister of nothing. Number 12. For a long time, there's been a lot of open talk about the efforts of government and hidden controllers to reduce the population. This was poo-pooed until the VXX, the shot in the arm, was mandated. Anyway, the idea of coordinated efforts to get rid of us is a scary thought for some people, a challenge for others, and BS for still others. But let's look at this a little differently for a moment. If the powers that want to be reduce the population, they will inadvertently shoot themselves in the foot. First, too many people are awake and not willing to play slave. Second, without the big populations, there won't be enough people to keep the big governments and the big corporations going. The powers that want to be would end up fighting among themselves for a greatly reduced number of top spots. If the big corporations do not exist, and we are not all caught in the 9-to-5 rut, what kind of trade would be possible? What would our distribution system look like? A lot of people in executive positions would find themselves out of work and wishing they had thought further than their nose. Without the big corporate jobs, which take up the most productive bulk of our day, what would we do with ourselves? Although there might only be a small temporary window before we were pushed in some new direction, without those jobs for a while, eating up their lives, people would begin to relax, perhaps begin to get healthy again. and do what they need to do to take care of themselves. Along a parallel track, the more we relax, the more we will see the truth of what is going on around us. The more we see what's going on around us, the more we will be able to reflect on it and decide, is that what we want? The more we reflect and make decisions that are in alignment with ourselves, the more we will undermine any plans and efforts to control our lives. Result? The powers that want to be will struggle and descend into conflict among themselves. If the wannabes are fighting among themselves and also struggling with the demise of their financial system, the fact that people are not paying attention to their media propaganda and so many other aspects of the dying old world order, they will not be able to pull off their takeover plan. We will be free. Number 13. Staying on the subject of governments and big corporations, if they go down, governments and corporations go down, how will the powers that want to be keep themselves in power? Would this even be possible? With a very small number of people scattered around the planet, would they have to move everyone into a smaller area in order to keep an eye on them? Is that what those 15-minute cities are about? Where might you end up living? What might you end up doing there? Are you understanding yet how much freedom we have had over the centuries? Freedom to decide your career and your work. Freedom to pursue your dreams and hobbies. Freedom to decide how you will care for your body. Freedom to learn and educate yourself as far as you want to go. Freedom to have children, as many or as few as you want, and raise them yourself according to what you believe in. Freedom to eat what you want. Freedom to live where you'd like to live and to be rich or poor according to your own choices. Freedom to think your own thoughts. Freedom to become. Are you willing to give up any of this? Or might you be interested in greater self-determination? I hope it's the latter. Number 14. For a couple of months, I was asking for a dream that would show me what is coming. But my dreams were small, nothing special and downright boring. Silly dreams, about shoelaces and other things. So I started asking the universe, okay, just give me a dream when things are about to pop, meaning when something big was about to occur. Nothing happened for a couple more months, but on July 2nd and 3rd, I had very powerful, disturbing dreams. In the first one, I was chatting on the phone with Nellie and gazing out the window to see, just looking out to the east, when I saw these thick, coal black clouds surrounding a tornado in the east pasture and moving to the northeast. I commented, oh, we're having a tornado, but I kept on chatting. Suddenly, I've realized that another tornado was coming, and it was coming directly at the house. The wind started to roar, the house was shaking, and it got very dark. I decided to get in my car and drive out of the storm, but once I was in the car, lightning struck the driveway right behind the car, and somehow I ended up back in the house where now a hurricane was raging in full fury with winds at 150 miles per hour. I didn't think the house was going to hold, and I was becoming frantic when suddenly a tidal wave from the south slammed into the house, breaking windows and sending water everywhere. I ran to see what I could do to stop the water coming in. And when I got to one of the broken windows, I came face to face with a very strange creature. It was about 7 feet tall and it was shaped vaguely like a kangaroo, but its eyes were those big, black, almond-shaped eyes of a gray alien. The coat of the kangaroo was spots and stripes, and the creature just stood there. We locked eyes, and I had the feeling it was trying to tell me something telepathically, but I was too rattled to get the message. Just then, I heard someone shout, and I looked to the right to see a gang of cowboys wearing cowboy hats, chaps, spurs, and holstered guns. Each one was holding a rifle as well, and I knew instantly that they were like the Jesse James gang of thieves and were hunting the creatures with big eyes. I woke thinking, the storms are upon us. The dream of the next night was of watching a big black and gray bus, one of those city commercial buses, full of people trying to back up. It didn't see a hill behind it, and it rolled downhill and landed in the water. The bus immediately filled with water. In panic, I ran screaming for help, but no one came. I ran back to see if I could open the emergency door at the back, and by this time it had turned into a school bus. I realized we were going to lose all those people. They would learn a big lesson, and I woke in great distress. So, what are these dreams saying? The first dream indicated that a series of worsening storms is very close. These are storms that will shake our nation, our house. In the dream, I kept wondering if the kangaroo was going to fight, but it didn't. The kangaroo's coat was of spots and stripes, kind of a twist on the idea of stars and stripes. This indicates that a commitment to our country and our flag is now very spotty. The big black eyes of the creature indicate that people are seeing a lot, and they're quietly communicating with one another, but they aren't willing to fight. They are going to let it all go down. I suspect that the cowboys were those who have thought they could herd us into a new world order. They were hunting anyone with eyes to see what was going on or who might stand up and fight. The message of this dream is that we are going to have to weather some pretty strong storms and should keep our eyes open so we're not fooled by the gangsters in Washington, D.C., and in some of the state governments. The second dream spoke for all of us. A bus is something you get on and ride along very specific routes. You are not the driver, and you are not in control of the bus. Someone else is driving. When it rolled downhill into the water and filled immediately, trapping everyone inside, it symbolized the population of the U.S. and the West being taken on a ride that was not going to end well. Water is the universal symbol of emotion, and this dream warns against drowning in emotion to the point that you become unable to take relevant action. It's time for all heads to be up and awake. We may have to witness some real difficulties. Use your awakened consciousness to choose every action and response wisely and well. And consider that you may have to sit down and do absolutely nothing for a few days. It is called not doing. Not doing. Chin up. We may have to walk through a bit of mud and water together, but that's okay. When we were kids, we loved splashing through mud puddles, and we're not too old to enjoy it again. Number 15. There has been a lot of talk about a big emotional event in the middle of July. So a couple of times I tried going to see what that might be, but all I could see was something vague involving UFOs. So maybe the fake alien invasion that has been predicted by many is the reason for the big emotions. What I actually saw was this whole conglomeration of events in no particular order. One was of a big show designed to make us believe some bad ETs were attacking us. Another was just this simple, quiet scene showing a fleet of UFOs. It wasn't even really moving. And yet another was a scene showing the return of Jesus. Now, if any of these occurred, don't be fooled. In the June look-see of last month, I wrote about Israel's push to expand the wars and that this would be followed by the apparition of Jesus and a host of angelic beings in the sky. This is a quote from that June look-see. People fell to their knees immediately. There was crying and wailing, and the apparitions told people to lay down their arms and follow him. They did, and were thereafter completely under the control of the cabal. The apparition was a hologram or something similar, maybe a computer-generated image, but millions of people believed it was really Jesus and were ready to do as told. That's the end of the quote from last month's look-see. So if we play with these scenes and arrange them in various ways, maybe we're going to see the fleet of UFOs first, followed by the fake war, followed by the fake return of Jesus. The first scene would be meant to establish the presence of UFOs. The second would be the attempt to make us believe that our military is fighting them off. And the third would be the attempt to get everyone under the umbrella of a new world order using Jesus as a carrot. I was playing with these scenes and doubting that the deep state would try to pull off something so blatantly false and fake when I happened to hear Netanyahu mention in a press release that Jesus was going to return. Actually, it was some kind of interview, and it was just a casual comment at the end of the interview. You know, Jesus is going to return. That's exactly what he said. Why did he say that? My instant reaction was a rather cynical one. What does such a criminal know about Jesus? So the idea that our military is going to fight UFOs is laughable. The idea that our military might have bad aim and hit real places while they pretend to fight off ETs is not so laughable. My antennae have been up ever since. Let's see what they do. And as an aside, if you knew the power of holograms to simulate reality, you'd be somewhere between awe and uh-oh. Number 16. I did a little survey of alternative media the past few weeks. So the following is a list of headlines and phrases within headlines just picked randomly from YouTube. Deadliest attack in weeks. Look out, danger. Panic alert. What just happened? They don't want you to see this. Benefits they want to hide are Watch before this is deleted. Rare warning to, this is terrifying. This is horrifying. It is beyond our worst fears. Breaking news, urgent warning. I'm scared to say this. Bombshell news. This is crazy. No record of this exists, but no one wants to hear this. No one is prepared. You won't believe what they just did. So every single one of these and many other phrases similar to these was used in various ways in titles meant to get you to click on the video. And every one of them uses some kind of fear to get you. Others promise to reveal some new and wonderful secret, and when you click on them, there is nothing at all that is new or even unusual revealed. Some promise a certain kind of information, but then they don't even address what the title promised. Some would have like a picture of someone prominent, maybe like Tucker Carlson, and right next to that, a mysterious-looking photo, along with a sensational title. But in listening to it, I would discover that Tucker had nothing to do with their topic, and the mysterious photo was irrelevant. They were a total deception. Is this what we have come to? Nothing but fear and deception? What does this say about our alternative media? Is it sliding into sensationalism in the same manner that the mainstream media once did? I spent several weeks just clicking on videos that looked interesting or sounded intriguing just to see if they really delivered, only to be thoroughly disgusted by them by the time I got to the end of them. And I did watch all the way to the end. How are we ever going to get to peacefulness if all we respond to is deception? If alternative media begins to get desperate for clicks, they're going to be easy targets for those looking to manipulate others, bribe others, or feed them information that isn't quite true. Let's not fall for that. Number 17. I've been saying since January of this year that I don't see an election in November in the US. And I still don't see an election in November in the US. When I try to see why or what's in the way, I get a blank white wall, which has long been my signal to stop. Stop right there, because there's some kind of lesson that is being learned or is needed in order to move forward in life. After the Biden-Trump debate, it was pretty obvious that Biden was not going to be president. Lately, I've wondered if there will be some kind of sham election. But if there is, people will see right through it and say, there was no real election. Sigh. We have all learned so much these past few years, but there's something more, something big, something that will benefit us greatly, even though it may be difficult at first. So trust the universe, or God, or source, or whatever you want to call it. We are meant to unfold like flowers in the sun, and we're close. Number 18. The chaos and confusion within the United States is on display for the entire world to see. They're all moving ahead. This saddens me. We are being left behind in so many ways. But we have to resolve our situation. Other countries are reorganizing, realigning, making new deals with one another, enjoying improvements at many levels, solving problems having to do with energy, food, relationships, medicine, infrastructure, trade, and so on. We have stalled out for the moment, and although we will get going again, it will be an uphill task. Everyone is watching to see what we will do. Everything will be different, and we may need to adjust every aspect of our lives. So let me point out again, the times of chaos are the absolute best times to bring forth your dreams, to make changes that allow you to do something you've always wanted to do, to switch careers and get involved in your favorite kind of work, to end or seriously rework relationships that do not feed your soul, to go into business for yourself, or to move somewhere you've always wanted to live, or any other thing that lights the fires of passion within you. Take advantage of this time. It is a wonderful time of change. Make that change your own. And that's it for this look-see. For those who are watching or listening for the first time, the look-see is a brief look at what's happening in our world and where the big trends are headed. Reality is not fixed. It's very dynamic, and it changes according to what we're doing with our consciousness. Nothing becomes real until we make it real. And we do that by making a choice or taking some kind of action or putting something together or taking it apart. Those decisive actions are what determine the path and the outcome. And of course, once we get something in motion, it takes a lot to make a change or get things going in another direction. And that's exactly the reason for looking ahead. If we don't like the direction things are going, we can make appropriate changes in a timely way, or prepare for what may look inevitable. If we see something we like, we can put some conscious attention on that outcome and help things along. So before I get too far off track, I'll just say it's important to look ahead and to assess what is happening, what's really happening, even if it's difficult to look at. It's important to see where we are going so that we know whether or not we need to do something different. Thank you so much for listening, and keep your eye on the skies. In other words, look up, and have a great month.